I'm going to get started in one more minute, right at 11. I'm going to disable the waiting room. All right, we can get started. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Mary Andrews. I'm the Associate Director for the Parent Information Center. And today we have a presentation from our friends over at the SPEACS program for the University of Delaware. I have Angela and Hannah with me today, and we will be talking about shared reading strategies for families. So welcome. Thank you guys for joining us again, and I will turn it over to you.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Okay. I'm going to put it in slideshow mode. Can you still see my screen?
yes.
Perfect. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we're going to do, as Mary was saying, just a little informational session on shared reading strategies that you can use at the home. So this is a collaborative effort between PIC, Delaware Department of Education, and then University of Delaware Center for Disability Studies. So Hannah and I, we both come from the DEMTSS Technical Assistance Center, and I'm just going to give you a second to read over here some information about the DEMTSS Technical Assistance Center. And we are funded by the Delaware Department of Education. Our goals for today are to define shared reading, learn strategies for promoting communication during shared reading, identify your child's language levels, and understand how to support your child in using AAC to participate in shared reading. So thinking about your child, how has your child grown when it comes to reading this school year? What are your areas of growth for your child when it comes to participating in reading activities? And do you find that your child is engaged when it comes to reading? So I'm going to just kind of open it up to our participants here today. Feel free to either take yourself off mute or put a response in the chat. And if you're not here with us today and you're watching this at a different time when it's not live, just kind of consider these questions as we go through our presentation today. So if you wanted to write in the chat or take yourself off mute, I'll give you about 20 more seconds. All right. Thank you, Heidi. I just saw your message. Thank you. All right. So let's go ahead and continue onwards. So just kind of, oh, thank you, Andrea. Independent reading and comprehension. Okay, thank you. All right, so kind of consider these questions as we go through our presentation for today. So reading, we know reading takes place all day, every day, and we know it occurs all throughout our day. We know that reading is taught in school, but it also can be taught and supported at home. So thinking about your home life, what opportunities when it comes to reading does your child have at home? Any opportunities that are available? Feel free to take yourself off mute or go ahead and write in the chat for us.
I will share. So my child has a library, and she also helps her younger cousin, who is learning to read. So they do FaceTime and they read together. And I find that it helps her as well. She also likes to write stories. So once she writes her stories and reads them back to me, that I find that that's very helpful for her as well.
I love that, Mary. Thank you. I know I have a 1-year-old at home, and we have a little library that's at like her level, and she'll grab books off, and we're reading books all day and looking at the pictures in the books. But yeah, we do that at home as well. Andrea said that read every night together, likes to write stories and add pictures. I absolutely love that. Thank you for sharing. All right. So we want to, oh, one more response. Maybe books. Okay. Captions on the television. I love that. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. So we know for some children, engaging with a text, it can be difficult. They may not be interested in the text, but we know for some it can be difficult. And we want to ensure for all children, we want them to see reading as fun. We want them to get enjoyment out of reading, and we don't want them to see it as just another task. So today we're going to be talking about shared reading. And the idea of shared reading comes from Karen Erickson and David Copenhaver, and it's this idea of creating an enjoyment of reading. So shared reading, the definition is the interaction that occurs between an adult and a student as they read a book together with the intention of enhancing the student's language and literacy skills. So this idea with shared reading, we're going to give you some strategies today that you might be able to use in the home to just create that enjoyment of reading. So Hannah, I'm going to turn it over to you. Just let me know when you want to click to the next slide.
Great, thanks, Angela. So I just have some general tips here for creating enjoyment of reading and building it into your daily routines at home. And this might be, there are some that are geared towards younger children and some for all age children. But one of the biggest things about building an enjoyment of reading is making it an interesting and fun time in your day. For younger kiddos, they might like silly voices and sound effects that the parents do. For our older students, if they're speaking, they might like to make sound effects. If we use a communication device, sometimes they have built-in sound pages that we can use to make it really fun and exciting. And then kind of showing the emotions that the characters are seeing. So if possible, I like to recommend that families have like a comfy space that they go to for reading where you can kind of sit so you can both see the book but also see each other's faces. Um, Another big one is being flexible in reading. Depending on how your child feels about the book, they might want you to read every word and every page in order. They might like you to read highly preferred pages over and over again. They might want to kind of move quickly and skip through. That's great. Be flexible, make it fun, follow your child's lead. If they seem really interested in a specific topic, a specific book, a specific picture, a specific word, spend some time talking about it, diving into it, exploring it. And then a big one, choosing books related to their interests, right? If we love animals, let's choose books that feature animals heavily to make it really interesting for them. I also like to model good book reading skills, some of those early pre-literacy skills, showing the child how to hold the book, how we turn the pages, showing them how the words move from left to right. As they get older, it might be they might start reading some books that have different graphics like maps and things like that, and we can talk about that and incorporate that kind of multisensory piece. I always like to recommend building a reading routine. It seems like you parents on the meeting have that going for you really great. Maybe you read books every night together. For children who maybe struggle with attending to a whole book, maybe we start with just a couple minutes of reading every night and build up to reading a whole book and help them build that skill of attending. And then our kind of final reading strategy here, reading tip, is to use the shared reading strategies we're going to talk about to build communication and conversation around the story. So we're going to dive into those a little deeper. Angela, you can go ahead. Before we get into our shared reading strategies, we want to frame the conversation in this idea of language levels. So when we think about and we know what our child's language level is, that can help guide the questions we ask about our story, the comments we make, and how the conversation around the book goes. So I have 4 kind of language levels here. And this isn't an official, diagnosis or determination, but just looking at some different behaviors that fall into each level, you might kind of see about where your child falls language-wise. And I will say this applies to both children who are speaking and children who are using an AAC device to communicate. Their language level would be based on whatever modality they use to communicate. And also we might see their language level shift throughout the day. Maybe when we're really tired, we use a little less language. When we're well regulated and full of energy, we might have a little bit of a higher language level. That's okay. It's flexible. It just gives you an idea of where your kiddo is. So thinking about our level 1 communicators, those are our really early receptive communicators. Maybe they don't have any words yet that they are speaking or using on their communication device. They might be communicating with their body language, with their facial expression, with gesture, with sound, but no words yet. And we're seeing really that strength in their having that receptive language. They're soaking everything in, they're listening and they're responding, but they're not quite expressing yet. And then we move up to our level 2 communicators, who are early expressive communicators, who are starting to use 1 or 2 words, either verbally or on their device. Their language is usually literal. It's related to what is directly in front of them, what's happening in that moment. Thinking about a level 3 communicator is our expressive communicator. We're starting to use some phrases, some short sentences, 2 to 5 words at a time. Our vocabulary is growing, but our language is still really about what's right in front of us, what we know really well. It's still pretty literal. And then level 4 and kind of beyond is where we're a full expressive communicator. We're using full sentences, 5+ words at a time. Maybe we're expanding and starting to like put things together into paragraphs or longer utterances or conversations. We maybe are starting to use some non-literal languages. So we're making inferences, we're making guesses, we're using things like funny phrases that aren't literal, some of that abstract language. So these are just some general ideas. As kids develop language, they might move through these 4 stages, maybe not in order, maybe they might skip one, but it's just a way to kind of frame your thinking about your child's language as you consider how you're going to communicate with them about books. Sorry, Angela, oh, here we go. You did change it. Okay. So I have my chart here again with the language levels across the top. And then we're going to look at underneath the different ways we can communicate with kids at each language level during reading. So thinking about our level 1 kiddos who have no spoken words yet, but they're communicating with their body, we're going to use a lot of yes, no questions, like, dislike questions, and their response to that is going to be whatever their form of communication is. So whether that's where they're looking, what their body language is, what their facial expression is, what sounds they make. Maybe you are reading a book like Brown Bear, and you open to the page with the dog, and the child smiles and laughs and looks at the dog, and you say, oh my goodness, I see you smiling. You like dogs. Do you like dogs? Yes, you like them a lot. Thinking about our level 2 communicators, right? We have 1 or 2 words. We're going to do open-ended questions with no right or wrong answers. It can be really like, what do you see? And maybe we point out objects that we're interested in. Again, still looking for their interest, their smiles, what they're looking at to help base that conversation around their interests, but no right or wrong answer, keeping it open-ended. Level 3 is where we're starting to do short phrases and sentences. We can still do those open-ended questions, but we might start to do some questions with definite answers. Oh my gosh, what did he eat? What did he see? And then we might give the child some feedback, if we're reading Brown Bear, oh, what did Brown Bear see? And they say, the bird. Yes, you're right. He saw the red bird, right? We're acknowledging their response, we're giving them feedback, and we're expanding it. And then by the time we get to our level 4 language level, we're starting to ask more questions that might be inferential. We're going to ask the child to kind of pull in their knowledge around the book and their background knowledge, their life experience to answer questions. And this is where we might start answering some comprehension questions that are a little deeper, that have a definite right or wrong answer. So this kind of questions might be predicting what would happen next, asking why something happened, getting a little bit deeper into those questions. Okay. Any questions about language levels or catering strategies to language level? If not, I'll turn it over to Angela to talk about the specific shared reading strategies we're going to share today.
Yeah, so Mary, quick question. These slides, can they be shared out with participants? Because we have linked things within the slides. So this comes from Jane Farrell, who is an SLP, and it's the Great 8. So these are 8 strategies that align with shared reading that you can use when you are reading with your child. So we have a graphic that goes here. We list it out, but we do go more in depth during our presentation. But I'm going to give you a second just to read over the shared reading strategies. And I just want to ask, has anyone ever heard of any of these? So has anyone ever heard of any of these strategies before, or maybe you already do them in some way when you're reading with your child? All right. Well, we're going to learn more about them today. So Hannah, I'm going to go ahead and turn this one over to you.
Okay, great. So we have all of our, okay, thanks, Heidi. We have all of our strategies here in our left-hand column, and then what that might look like, and then what it might look like for a child who uses AAC to communicate. So the first strategy would be link to letters. And when we link to letters, we look for specific letters while we're reading. We review the sounds the letters make. We just talk about the letters that are present in the text. With an AAC user, they might have an alphabet or phonics page on their device that we can ask them, prompt them to find the letter and sound in their device. Maybe we model, okay, let's go to your alphabet page. I saw the letter H, like in your name. Can you find letter H on your device? We might also look for words that start with the same letter. So maybe a lot of times when we look for specific letters while reading, we might look for like letters in the child's name. So maybe we look for words on the device that also start with that letter. Just really talking about letters, talking about the sounds they make, and linking to the text. We also can model, I have a question. That's a great reading strategy to kind of prompt the child to ask questions, to show them what it looks like, and to model some of that self-talk. So before we ask a question about the story, we're going to model, I have a question. So I might say, I have a question. I wonder what he's going to do next. On the device, you can model question or I have a question, I have question, any, depending on your child's language level, whatever number of words they're currently using, we might do the full phrase or just the word question to match their level. And then we're going to model self-talk to find the answer to the question. So, I have a question. I wonder what the caterpillar is going to eat next. And then when we turn the page, oh, I see the caterpillar is going to eat an apple. And maybe on the device, we modeled question when we said, I have a question. And then when we turn the page, maybe we model eat apple. Teaching vocabulary is when we look for new or unfamiliar words in the text and we talk about their definition and what they mean. Same thing on the device, right? We can look for words in the device. Maybe you use a tool like the word finder or a search tool. And then maybe we think about how could we explain a new word using the vocabulary that exists in the device. If they don't have that word in the device, can we like find a synonym or a couple core words that mean the same thing? And then always asking if they have a question, right? That's another way we can talk about asking questions in reading. So frequently throughout reading, if you have been modeling, I have a question, maybe you ask your child, do you have a question? And then a big thing for our AAC users is to provide that wait time so that they can respond, they can ask a question, and then we interpret whatever they come up with as their question. So if you say, do you have a question? And your child says, eat, for example, you might say, okay, you have a question about what the caterpillar ate or what the caterpillar is eating. But giving them that wait time and being flexible in their response, I think, is a big support for AAC users asking questions about the text. We might also do print referencing. This is great for some of our students who are starting to write, looking for specific elements of the text and the print. So capital letters, punctuation, the spaces between words, all those things that make up written text, we're going to look for them and point them out. This is a great time if a student is using an AAC device as a writing tool in any way to model how we do those functions, right? How we make our letters uppercase, how we find our punctuation marks. And again, asking questions about the print. Is this a big letter or a little letter? And then let your child answer on their AAC device to help them understand the differences between capitals and lowercase. And then rhymes and sounds, we talk about words and sounds that sound similar. A lot of times if we're reading children's books, they have rhymes and it's fun to point them out and talk about them. And then again, we can go on our device and say the two words on the device and see how they sound the same.
All right. So two other strategies that go along with the graphic that we showed you is car and crowd. I know on the graphic it said car slash air. They are essentially the same thing. So when we're thinking of the car strategy, we're thinking about comment, asking for participation, and then responding. So what you're going to do is you would comment on the text. So maybe I see the caterpillar ate an apple. Ask the student or ask your child to invite them to participate. Maybe they will say, I like the apple, or maybe they will point to the apple. And then give them time to respond as well. So you want to wait for after each prompt. You want to make sure your child is responding and have them expand on that response. You might model a response for your child. And if your child does not respond, that is okay. And then we also have the crowd strategy, which is completion, recall, open-ended, WH questions, and distancing. So you might provide sentence starters for your child to complete. You might have your child recall information about the text. You might use open-ended questions for your child to respond to. And then you want to try to make connections between the text and experiences that your child has had. Some additional things you might want to consider when reading with your child is setting a purpose for reading. So maybe when you're reading with your child, you are just looking for words that begin with the letter H. Maybe instead you're going to look and see, how does the main character feel by the end of this chapter? So just setting a purpose for reading. And then think about too, how might you summarize what you've read before in the text? We know it's our goal sometimes to read. I know you all were mentioning about reading and trying to read every single night, but we know sometimes that may not happen. So thinking about how can we summarize what we've previously read in the text?
Okay, so I'm going to do some specific examples for the car strategy that we said is sometimes also called the air strategy, but that attention getter or comment, inviting participation, and then responding. That's our strategy. I have examples based on the Very Hungry Caterpillar at each language level. But it can obviously, you can use these with any book that is related to the topic your child prefers or is interested in. So thinking about our level 1 communicator, who again has maybe no words yet, but they're communicating with their body. Our attention getter. Oh, I do want to point out, looking at this chart, if a word is in red, it's a little hard to see, but if a word is red instead of black, that might be the word that you model on your child's AAC device in this prompt. So my first comment here is in red, so I might model this on a device. I might say, look, and point to a picture on the page. For example, the caterpillar is eating the apple. I might point to the apple and say, look. I'm going to invite the child to participate by saying, oh, I like apples, modeling like on the device because it's in red there. And the student might respond with their body language or their facial expression. And I'm going to acknowledge their response, their communication, and I'm going to model an expanded response for them. So I might say, you smiled when you saw the apple. I think you're saying you like apples. So that's for our level 1. Angela, can you click? Perfect. Our level 2, we have 1 to 2 words. I might say, as my comment, oh, that's funny, right? Model funny on the device. I wonder what he will eat next. So maybe I model what eat. Anything the child responds, I'm going to acknowledge, accept as correct. I'm going to expand on it. Maybe I'll help them if I know that I'm looking for a food and they're new to their AAC device. I might help them navigate to the food page and then let them see all the options and then let them choose. But either way, any response they offer, I'm going to acknowledge. So I might say, oh, cake, that's a good idea. I wonder if he'll eat cake. And then for our level 3, perfect, which we're going to do 2 to 5 words. So we're doing some phrases and sentences. I can do any attention getter again. Uh-oh. And then I'm going to ask a question. And here you can see I modeled saying I have a question, right? I have a question. I wonder what the caterpillar is doing. The child might say something like eat fruit, eat apple, eat leaf, whatever they say. And then I'm going to acknowledge and give feedback. Maybe I'll say, yeah, you're right. He is eating fruit. You like to eat fruit too. Or I don't know if caterpillars really eat fruit, but he is. Acknowledging, giving feedback, expanding on their answer. And then our level 4, who has 5+ words, I might do another attention getter, anything that's going to get their attention. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. He's eating so much. I'm going to ask a question that's maybe a little bit more inferential, right? Where do you think he's getting all this food from? And maybe the child responds, from a farm, from the supermarket, whatever they say. And I'm going to provide feedback. That's a good place to get food. We go there to get our food. So that is just a more specific, broken down example of what that CAR strategy might look like at different language levels. Again, we'll get those slides sent out to you so you can see it and look at it. But it's nice to have a specific example. And then this chart, again, will be in the slides for you. Those great 8 strategies that Angela shared with you, it gives suggestions on which ones to use with which levels of communicators. So obviously our level 4 communicators, we're going to use any or all of those shared reading strategies with them. They're ready to do all of them. Expressive communicators, same thing. For our early kiddos, we might not do rhymes and sounds yet. And then for our very early communicators, we're just really doing that CAR strategy and maybe pointing out letters in their name. But again, I like to say to families, this feels like a lot. It might feel unnatural or difficult. You can just pick 1 or 2 strategies you're going to focus on during each shared reading session and keep it natural, keep it fun. So maybe you say, okay, today I'm going to try to do share the air with my child. I'm going to think about giving an attention getter for each page, asking them participate, and then responding to them. You do not have to do all of this. That's a lot. We don't want it to become like testing them or quizzing them, but just offering you some potential supports you could use for engagement. So just a couple AAC communication resources. Okay, so Andrea Creed has a question about what about when the child's response doesn't seem to be connected to the text. I think sometimes when my son says may seem like it's not connected, but for him it is, or it's his way of connecting to me in the text. Yeah, what a great question. Sometimes when we're reading with our child, they do give a response that maybe to you doesn't seem like the most intuitive, connected response, but to them, they are connecting, right? They're engaging with you, they're engaging with the text, they're participating in conversation. And we also don't know, right, if whatever we're reading in the text did like kind of trigger a memory or a thought for them that is connected. So I always like to respond and acknowledge any response. So even if we're talking about, you know, I'm trying to think of like a good example. We're talking about maybe a book about like a superhero, and we ask like, oh, what do you think he's going to do next? And we say like, go to the pool or something kind of unrelated to the story. I might say like, that's an interesting prediction. I wonder why you are guessing he might go to the pool. I wonder if it's because you went to the pool today, like trying to connect it to their lived experience and try and suss out what that connection is that they're making, but still acknowledging that they're participating in the conversation and the reading.
And I wonder too if you said, tell me more, and to see if your child would add on to that response that they gave you, and maybe then you could figure out what is the connection. That would be my other thought.
Yeah, I always say like acknowledge and try to expand. So whether you expand or the child expands. So, oh, go to the pool. Okay. Tell me more about that. Why might he go to the pool? Or whatever is appropriate for your child. Or you might, if you can kind of like feel out the connection, then highlighting that connection for them. But yeah, I mean, I think all children sometimes sometimes say things that don't seem super connected, but then we kind of have that light bulb moment later on where we're like, oh my gosh, that's why you were thinking of that. And it is connected, right? They are in some way participating with you and wanting to share the experience with you. So thinking about when we're doing shared reading with children who maybe communicate using AAC or are multimodal communicators, they communicate in a couple different ways. How can we support them, right? What resources and supports can we offer? So if they do have a high-tech AAC device that they use that comes home with them, that's awesome. We can use their core vocabulary to talk about books. A lot of these devices have reading or early book pages built in. So I have here a TouchChat Word Power vocabulary that has, I think all of them do have these like kind of early books built in, but you can also customize your own book pages using their template. So maybe your child doesn't really care about Brown Bear, but they love Captain Underpants. You could make a Captain Underpants page with the characters and the settings and give them that vocabulary to talk about it. But we can also use our core vocabulary, our vocabulary that's already available, right? Sure, maybe the device doesn't come built in with the word Captain Underpants, but we can say like underwear man on the device, right? And get our meaning across. We might also use low-tech communication supports if your child does not have high-tech AAC, or maybe they do and you want some additional supports. I also recommend this if you have a child who has a high-tech device and they don't want you to touch it, they want to have ownership of it, you can model on a low-tech support. You can download communication boards, often free online, specific to books, or that match your child's AAC device. Some people like to use picture cards, so you can see an example of kind of like almost a PEX board over here on the left related to Brown Bear. So they have it's kind of small, but you can see they have their sentence starters I see, and then they can choose the animals and the colors. I also have a low-tech core board here that's the second in that's specific to Brown Bear, and then I have a general one next to it that we could still use. And then another fun thing, especially with younger kids, or if you have a child who has special interests in certain toys, is pulling those in as manipulatives to represent the characters or the settings. So if they love little animal figurines, that's one of their particular interests, maybe we bring those in to represent the characters and kind of act out the story and use that as their communication and response. I think that can be a great way. Is there anything else that you all use as parents at home to support your children in communicating about books? Or if you use any of the ones I have on the screen here? Do some examples.
So we have two videos. Oh, here we go. It says use animals and animal sounds a while back. Yeah, that's a
That's a
great
great
way.
one.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to look at two videos here, some examples of shared reading. We're not going to watch the entire videos, but they are linked in here. And I want you to think about as you're watching these videos, what are some things that you like that is going on in these videos, and what are some things you might be able to use at home? So we're going to go ahead and watch the first one. Fingers crossed the sound works.
I'm gonna go ahead and read. I'm gonna read your story. Okay, are you ready to read? All right, here we go. Do you remember when we wrote this story?
Remember.
Do you remember when we wrote this story? Yeah? I liked this story.
Right.
I liked it a lot. All right. I'm looking at the picture and I see Miss Melissa. Do you see Miss Melissa? It says, I can help Melissa make public hair. Hmm. I think that's Melissa.
Remember like Melissa.
Did you
Remember
like
like
Melissa?
Melissa.
Yes, I liked Melissa too. I
Right.
liked her. You helped her
Make.
make Ella hair. I can ride a bike.
You. Right.
You ride the bike, don't you?
Five.
Yes, that's you.
Remember, like,
riding
the
the
last
bike.
let make you
Good.
five. You. Five.
All right, so that was the first video, and I think there is a little more that goes along with it, but it is linked in the slides for you. And then here's the second video. There we go. Here's the second video.
A cliff above a river. His family was on the other side of the river. The king's army is close, said Jip. Oh boy. The king's army is close. So they were on a cliff above the river. Was it
Across.
across the river? Or
That's not okay. She to do doctor doing sleep, that's not okay.
it's not okay. Yeah, because the king's army was
Was.
close.
That's not okay.
Yeah, what
She
should
to
they
do doctor doing sleep, that's not okay.
Right.
What?
What? You bring what should is.
That, oh, that,
That's not okay. She to do doctor doing sleep, that's not okay.
It's not okay. Wait.
What? Wait is no. She to do doctor doing sleep, wait, no.
What is okay?
Okay. Wait, what is okay?
Well, let's see what happens next. Chi called out. It's Chi! I'm with Dr. Doolittle. Many animals ran to the river. They joined hands and feet, trunks and tails.
Oops.
That's an oops. And they made a bridge. Wow.
She to do doctor doing sleep, oops.
Yeah, look at that.
No. Oh. Oh. Look. Oh. No. She to do doctor doing sleep, oh no.
Oh no. No, no, no.
Oh. No. She to do doctor doing sleep, oh no.
Oh no.
At.
Look at
What? That's. They. Doing.
oh,
that's not okay. It's a little scary when you've got a bridge made of animals.
All right. So I'm pretty sure with this video as well, when I grabbed it and I was reading the comments, the adult who posted the video said that this was the child's first time for saying that's not okay, if I can recall. But this is also linked as well in the slides. So thinking about these two videos that we saw, what did you notice? What do you wonder? Was there anything that you liked or disliked in the videos that you saw?
So
many.
yeah,
Go ahead.
Andrea said she thinks she met the woman in the first video at the Comprehensive Literacy for All workshop, which is really cool.
And I mean, she still helps me now with
Awesome.
stuff with my son for school. And she actually, it was crazy because I had read a post that she had commented on Facebook and then met her in real life and I didn't know it was the same person until she started talking. But she pulls her son out of school 2 days a week and does literacy instruction with him at home. And then he goes back to school. Like she takes him back to school. But I mean, it's pretty amazing, like what she's been able to do. But one of the things I've noticed that I liked in these videos, um, particularly with the second one, where the child is like, he's laying on the bed, he's doing all these things that um at school they would be like, oh, you have to sit in the chair, you have to sit in the chair, and he's able to just be as he is and participate in the book.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how both videos, but the second one in particular, it was just such a relaxed environment, or at least it seemed relaxed, and there was no expectations put on on the kids for responding or interacting. But they both did interact and engage with the text, but there was no expectations like you were saying, Andrea. In school, you would probably see some sort of expectations with how you're reading. You need to be seated, you need to be doing X, Y, and Z, but there was nothing here, and both kids were interacting with the text. So thank you, Andrea, for sharing.
And I think kind of building off of what Andrea said about it being relaxed, I think especially with that second video, I mean, he clearly had like a lot of vocabulary in his message window and he was saying a lot of stuff, but there were pieces of it that were related to the text. And the woman he was reading with was calling out like exactly like, yeah, oh no, that's not okay. You're right. So even though maybe some of it were mishits or things that were not super related, we were acknowledging that it's communicative, that it's meaningful, that he was, even though he was kind of laying on the bed and flopping around, he was understanding the book and connecting to it.
Yeah, that second video is 11 minutes long. So if you do have the opportunity, definitely go back and watch some more of it because it is a really good video. Did anyone else have any other thoughts or notices or wonders with the videos? All right. So we enjoyed being able to give you this presentation today, and we hope that you're able to use and apply some of these strategies at home. If you have any more questions for Hannah or myself, here is our contact information, and SPEACS is on there as well. And I'm going to turn it over to Mary.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Hannah and Angela, for joining us, and Christy as well. It's always a pleasure. If you attended today, you will receive an email with the slides as well as the survey. Please complete the survey for both us and UD to help us continue to present to you this information. And everyone have an amazing afternoon.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.